Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin.
Before there were roads, before there were names, there was water. Not just in the streams that twist through land like slow-moving thoughts, but in the sky, waiting. The sky has always been a keeper of stories, and its first memory may have been a drop. A drop that formed high in the atmosphere where cold meets vapor and time begins to slow. That drop, ancient and small, may have fallen during the Earth's first soft whisper of rain. And when it did not fall alone. It fell with others, sisters, cousins, companions, who had all been waiting for the right temperature, the right stillness in the air, the right gravity of longing. They fell not as accidents but as something closer to music. Their descent was not chaotic but graceful, a return. That was the sky's first offering, not thunder, not storm, but memory turned liquid. When that first rain kissed the earth, the land did not flinch. It opened. It welcomed. And the water, eager to belong again, began its long, looping path, not in straight lines but in curves. It soaked into the ground, touching ancient rock that had not felt water in eons. It curled around roots that were just learning to be roots. It carried with it pieces of sky-tiny particles, gases, even whispers of light, that would feed the soil in ways no creature yet alive could understand. In this way, rain became the first translator between heaven and earth. It brought what the sky knew down to where life would begin, and in doing so, it became more than water. It became memory in motion. That water didn't stop. It never does. It slid between grains of soil, nestled in cracks, joined others in underground gatherings that would one day swell into rivers. Along the way, it remembered. Water is one of the few things that never forgets. It remembers the shapes of the rocks it touched. It remembers the heat of sunlight on its back. It remembers the pull of the moon, even underground. And so it flowed down and around, becoming streams, then rivers, then clouds again. It became mist rising from leaves at dawn. It became frost whispering across winter grass. It became the hush in the air before a summer storm. All these were just forms of its remembering. And still the sky kept making more. More droplets, more rain, as if practicing the same memory over and over again. And maybe that's all rain ever is, a kind of rehearsal for belonging. It travels endlessly not to escape but to return. Each fall from the sky is a return to something older than language, a reconnection to the cycle that shaped the first soil, the first cell, the first breath. Even now, when we hear rain tapping on windows or watch it soak into the earth, we are witnessing an old story retelling itself. One drop at a time. Not in a rush, not for drama, but for the quiet work of connection. Because nothing connects like water, and no memory is older than rain. Now imagine that water, having fallen as the first rain, began its deeper work, not just flowing over land but shaping it. Over centuries, drops turned into streams, streams into rivers, rivers into valleys. The earth bent gently under the persistence of water, carved not by force but by patience. Water doesn't argue. It doesn't demand. It waits. It softens stone simply by touching it again and again, like a whisper repeated across ages. Canyons were not made by storms, but by time flowing in liquid form. And beneath every deep valley is the memory of a drop that wouldn't stop moving. As water seeped into the ground, it found its way into spaces where no light ever reached. There, in the silence of soil and rock, it carried minerals from one place to another, feeding seeds before they sprouted, cooling magma before it broke the surface. Water is the hidden architect of life, designing with no blueprint, building with no hands. It helped mold the land not by lifting it but by dissolving the unnecessary. And as it moved, it began to meet life. The earliest cells, small and uncertain, floated in shallow pools warmed by sun and rich with ancient minerals. Those cells didn't swim in water, they were part of it. Life was not added to water, it came from it. Every organism that grew, Every leaf that unfolded, every scale, feather, and skin that ever glistened in the sun carried water within it. It became blood in veins and sap in trees. It traveled as breath from lungs and mist from oceans. It entered every living thing not as a stranger, but as something returning home. Even now, more than half of our bodies is made of water. The ocean didn't stay outside of us. It moved in. It became part of memory, of thought, of warmth. When we cry, it's not just emotion, it's the ocean remembering how to fall. When we sweat, it's not just effort, it's the sun pulling water back toward the sky. Water also shaped time. It helped living things learn rhythm. The tides moved with the moon, marking cycles before calendars existed. Rivers flooded and receded, teaching the land to breathe. Animals learned to migrate with the rains, to rest in drought, to listen to the clouds. Plants opened and closed according to moisture, folding their leaves when the air dried, reaching skyward when rain approached. Time, in its oldest form, was marked by water. Not by clocks, but by how long it took a cloud to form, a stream to dry, a well to fill. Even human memory grew around these rhythms. We built our first homes near rivers. We worshipped rain. We prayed to oceans. We learned to sing in time with the drip of water echoing through caves. And in all this, water never became proud. It never asked to be noticed. It carried mountains as dust and delivered them to the sea without a single word. It slipped between cracks in glaciers and sat silently for centuries. It held fish in its arms, carried pollen between islands, and balanced entire forests in the curve of a raindrop. Every cloud, every lake, every puddle holds stories older than any book. And though it never speaks, water is always telling us something. About where it's been, about where we're going, about what we've forgotten. Even in the driest deserts, water is not truly gone. It hides in seeds, waiting. It waits in air, in rock, in the breath of animals who dream of rain. And when the first drop falls after a long drought, the earth doesn't just drink, it remembers. The smell of rain on dry soil, what we call petrichor, is the earth exhaling after holding its breath for too long. It's the reunion of two old friends who never stopped thinking of each other. That scent, that feeling, is the earth recognizing itself in the mirror of rain. So water moves forward always, and yet it circles back always. Through veins and clouds and rivers and tears, it continues the long journey that began with a single drop. A drop that wasn't just the first rain, but the sky's first memory. In the quietest places on earth, deep forests where light falls like a whisper, or caves where no footstep has ever echoed, water is still moving. You may not hear it, but it's there. Sliding along roots, pressing gently against stone, forming tiny beads on moss that never dries. It is never still, even when it appears calm. Even a frozen lake is moving, just more slowly, like a deep breath held between seasons. This is how water has survived time, not by fighting it, but by becoming part of it. It listens to the wind. It bends with gravity. It learns the shape of every container it enters, and then it leaves when the time comes, without protest, without needing to stay. And when it leaves something behind. Softened stone, moistened soil, the memory of having passed through. Sometimes it becomes mist, other times it becomes ice, and sometimes it becomes invisible, rising into air so light it cannot be seen. But even then it is on its way somewhere. It is gathering, forming, waiting. In the high sky, clouds are not just bundles of vapor. They are waiting rooms of memory. Each one holds water from thousands of places, an Arctic sea, a jungle flower, a river that once touched the bones of a mountain. Every drop that falls from those clouds carries with it a lineage, a record of where it's been, a silent map that never needs to be drawn. The rain you feel on your skin may have once been snow on a glacier, or fog on a fern, or breath from a whale. It may have seen sunrise over deserts and moonlight over oceans. And now it is here, on your cheek, like a blessing returned. Our connection to water is not just physical, it's emotional, ancestral. We are born in water. We float in it before we take our first breath. It cradles us before we ever open our eyes. And when we do open them, the world around us shines, because light loves water. It dances on lakes. It reflects in dew. It paints rainbows in the curve of a storm's departure. Water gives the world not only life but beauty. A kind of moving mirror that lets us see both what is above and what is below, what is real and what is reflected. No wonder poets turn to water for metaphors. No wonder we find peace near rivers or feel sorrow in the rain. Water doesn't just carry minerals, it carries feeling. And still it teaches. It teaches us how to move gently, how to persist without resistance, how to change shape without losing identity. It teaches us that arrival and return are the same path, that softness can be stronger than stone, that the things which appear weakest, mist, droplets, puddles, are the very things that carve mountains and shape worlds. Water teaches us not to hurry, not to cling, to flow. Now think of the rain again, the first one and every one since. It's not just weather, it's reunion, it's the sky giving back what it once received. It's the endless gift returned again and again, never asking for more than a place to land. And when that drop reaches the ground, it disappears, but only for a moment. Soon it will rise again, evaporate, travel, find another cloud, another moment, another fall. The journey never stops. It only changes form, and in each form it remembers. So the next time it rains, pause, not to seek shelter, but to listen. The rain isn't just falling, it's telling a story about where it's been, about who it touched, about what it carried, a story that began before us and will continue long after us, a story written not in words but in motion, in shimmer, in silence. That is the memory of the sky, and that is the gift of the first rain. Far below the restless surface of the sea, where light fades into a soft twilight and currents move like slow thoughts, the ocean begins to dream. It does not sleep like we do. It stirs and flows and remembers, carrying the weight of time in its depths. The ocean has been here since before memory had meaning, since before land dared to rise above it. And even now, it touches every coast not with force but with a gentle longing. Its waves are not just movements of water, but pulses of ancient breath, a heartbeat so vast we can only feel it when we stand still long enough to listen. Beneath those waves lies a world of silence, not empty but full of patience. The ocean holds more life than land ever could, tucked away in folds of coral and canyons of darkness. Creatures with glowing bellies drift through liquid night. Forests of kelp rise and sway like slow dancers. Mountains hide beneath waves and trenches fall deeper than our tallest peaks could ever dream of rising. And through it all, water moves, around each grain of sand, between each fin, through the gills of fish and the breath of whales. It is always moving, but never lost, because the ocean knows exactly where it's been. It dreams in cycles. It dreams in salt and temperature and tide, in the rise and fall of the moon's pull. The ocean dreams through its currents, those vast rivers within water that move heat and memory across the planet. A drop of warm water near the equator may one day glide silently under a sheet of polar ice, and in doing so it carries with it the story of both warmth and cold, of light and dark. These journeys take years, sometimes centuries, but the ocean does not rush. It turns slowly, like a great clock, ticking not in seconds but in breaths of Earth itself. And in its dreaming, the ocean remembers everything it has touched. It remembers the dust from mountains, carried down rivers into its open arms. It remembers the bones of ships, resting in silence on its floor. It remembers the voices of whales echoing across blue distances, voices that no longer need land to carry love or loneliness. The ocean remembers the sky, too, how clouds fall into it, and how it returns their favor as mist. Rain and wave, storm and calm, all part of the same breathing body. Even now, when we stand at its edge, the ocean doesn't see us as strangers, it sees us as part of itself. We came from water, after all. Every cell in our bodies still hums with salt. Our blood tastes like a memory of the sea. And when we walk along a beach, letting the surf brush our feet, we are not just touching water, we are touching our beginning. The ocean watches with eyes made of waves, not blinking but moving, always watching, always remembering. And while we sleep, the ocean dreams on, of icebergs floating far from home, of turtles that remember beaches they've never seen, of deep-sea vents where life begins in darkness and heat, of sunken forests and ancient tides. These dreams are not separate from us. We carry them too in our quiet moments, in the ebb and flow of our own thoughts, in the pull we feel toward the sound of waves even when we're far from the shore. The ocean's dreaming is our own, a rhythm we never learned but always knew. Let's drift deeper now, far below the waves where the ocean's oldest memories rest in silence. Down here, light has no home. It fades until it forgets its own name, but water remains. It presses from every side, thick and heavy and calm. In this world of deep stillness, time slows into something more like breathing than counting. Life here does not rush. It glows softly, floats gently, waits patiently. Strange creatures blink in and out of shadows. Some make their own light, their own warmth. Others move without eyes, navigating by vibrations, by ancient instincts passed down in silence. They do not need to see the world to understand it. They feel it, ripple by ripple, like a dream shaped by touch. This is where the ocean stores its deepest thoughts, not in words but in layers. Each layer tells a different part of its story: warm water on top, light and restless; colder water below, slower and older; and at the very bottom, water that hasn't touched the sky in 1,000 years. It rests like a secret, heavy with what it knows. These layers shift over time, turning, folding, exchanging warmth and salt like quiet conversations. Scientists call this the thermohaline circulation. But the ocean simply calls it remembering. Above these dark plains, the currents move like sleeping giants. The Gulf Stream, the Kuroshio, the Antarctic Circumpolar, these are not just rivers within the sea. They are messengers. They carry warmth from the tropics to the poles and bring cold back again. They guide migrations, feed storms, shape seasons. Without them, weather would lose its rhythm. Forests would not know when to grow. Ice would not know when to melt. In this way, the ocean shapes the world not just by touch, but by suggestion. Its dreaming becomes our living. And within that dreaming is a kind of music. Whales sing songs that travel for hundreds of miles. Not melodies we can hum, but long, low notes that stretch through water like the ocean humming to itself. Some say whales remember the shape of the sea through these songs, passing down roots and stories from one generation to the next. Dolphins speak too, in clicks and pulses. Shrimp snap their claws so loudly it can be heard across reefs. Coral, though silent, glows in rhythm with moonlight. Even the smallest organisms, the plankton that drift like stardust, move in waves, rising each night and sinking each day in the largest migration on Earth. All of it choreographed not by clocks but by tides. The moon pulls, the ocean follows, and life within it follows in turn. On the shore, we only see the edge of this dream. Waves breaking, foam curling, the crash and hush of tides coming in and going out. But that is only the breath. The body of the ocean lies beyond, unseen but present. It connects all things. A raindrop falling in the Amazon may one day drift through the Pacific. A snowflake melting in the Arctic might find its way to the Indian Ocean. The water that cools a desert night might have once washed the fins of a shark. The same molecules move endlessly, through clouds and rivers and bodies and tears, returning always but never in the same shape. That is the ocean's way, to transform without ending. And as the ocean turns and folds upon itself, it carries our footprints too. Everything we do touches it. The warmth we send into the sky melts glaciers and softens currents. The dust we release falls into its mouth. It holds our stories whether we wish it to or not, but it doesn't turn away. It absorbs, it heals, it adapts. And still it dreams, not of revenge, but of balance, of rhythm returned. It dreams of coral blooming again, of fish swimming in waters clean and clear. It dreams not in hope or despair, but in cycles, because the ocean does not end. It changes, yes. It can rise, it can retreat, but it always becomes something new, and in every form it remembers the dream. And now, as we drift toward the ending of this ocean's dream, imagine standing at the edge of a shore. Your feet sink into wet sand and the tide comes in, then recedes, always returning, never exactly the same. That moment, that meeting between land and sea, is where all of Earth's memory gathers. It is not just water that touches your toes. It is the salt of ancient seas, the dissolved breath of whales, the tears of rain that fell on forgotten mountains. It is time reaching out. The ocean dreams not only for itself, but for everything it touches. Its waves carry pollen, seeds, songs, and silence. Its tides pull at continents and cradle moonlight. And even as the sun sets, the water keeps moving, sweeping starlight across its surface like a blanket being drawn over a child. This dream of the ocean is not loud. It is not urgent. It flows like a lullaby, a story whispered in the language of waves. If you sit still enough beside it, you might feel your own breath begin to slow, sinking with the push and pull of the tide. The same rhythm beats within us. That's no coincidence. Our hearts once learned to beat while floating in water. Our ears are tuned to sound moving through liquid. Our bones remember the softness of swimming before we ever walked. When we gaze at the sea, we are not just looking outward. We are looking backward, inward, homeward. And the ocean responds. It wraps itself around islands, washes over rocks worn smooth by centuries, and rises to meet storms with equal parts grace and power. It welcomes rivers, collects the dust of distant lands, and never asks how far they've traveled. It holds it all the minerals, all the songs, all the forgotten paths. Deep within its trenches, it guards the oldest secrets, fossils of creatures no longer known, silence deeper than any night, pressures so great they could crush metal but still cradle jellyfish like dreams. The ocean does not judge what it holds. It simply holds. In every crashing wave and gentle tide, in every swirl of current beneath the surface, there is a memory being replayed. Not exactly as it was, but close enough that the rhythm feels familiar. That is how the ocean dreams, by remembering, by repeating, by renewing. It takes what was and makes it part of what is, always folding, always flowing, always listening. Even when we forget to listen, the ocean remembers for us. And when we return, whether in boats or with bare feet on beaches or in thoughts at the end of long days, it is always there, waiting, dreaming. And maybe that is the lesson, that to dream is not to escape but to connect, that to flow like water is to trust that the journey matters even when we cannot see the end, that to be deep does not mean to be dark, and that silence, like the ocean's deepest places, is not emptiness, but fullness held gently. The ocean's dream is not one of escape but of return, to the source, to the tide, to the rhythm that shaped us. So when the wind blows salt across your face, or you hear the hush of waves at night, know that you are not separate from it. You are part of the dream, a ripple in the vast remembering, a drop in the ocean's endless song. High in the arms of quiet mountains, where snow falls like a whisper and time seems to move more slowly, something ancient begins. It doesn't roar. It doesn't rush. It starts as a drip, sliding from the edge of melting ice, gathering in small, still pools before continuing its descent. This is the beginning of a river, but not just any river. It is one that remembers where it came from. Every drop within it carries the weight of its birthplace, the cool hush of high altitudes, the silence of stone, and the soft white light of snow untouched by footprints. Before it becomes a stream, before it earns a name, it is simply memory in motion. As it begins to flow downward, winding its way around rocks and roots, the river carves its path not with violence but with patience. The mountain does not resist. It allows itself to be shaped. Over centuries, sharp edges soften, deep grooves form, and the water carries pieces of the mountain with it, tiny sediments, minerals, the dust of ancient cliffs. The river remembers the shape of the mountain in its curves, its bends, its sudden drops and slow meanders. It speaks the language of elevation and erosion, of melting and flowing, and it tells that story endlessly, one ripple at a time. Along its path, the river meets many companions. Small tributaries join from hidden valleys, and each brings its own history, water once caught in the cup of a leaf, once frozen inside a glacier's grip, once falling from a storm that passed in the night. These meetings are silent but significant. They do not argue for space. They merge, they blend, and in doing so, the river becomes richer, deeper, more whole. With each joining, the river's voice changes, grows louder, more certain, more complete. But even as it gathers strength, it never forgets its origin. The mountain is still in every drop, still guiding its flow, still whispering through the smooth stones beneath its surface. The river moves through forests now, weaving past trees that lean in to drink. Birds follow its path, fish dance in its shadows, and deer leave prints along its edge. It is not alone, though it is never crowded. Life gathers around water, not because it is commanded to, but because it is drawn to the coolness, to the nourishment, to the promise of continuity. The river offers without expectation. It feeds roots and fills hollows. It carries leaves and fallen branches. It accepts what the world gives it and carries it forward, not in burden, but in rhythm. And the river, even as it moves, is always listening. To the rustle of reeds, the calls of animals, the falling of rain. It carries all these sounds within it, soft and steady like a lullaby told through motion. Its surface may shine in the sunlight, but its depth holds shadow, temperature, time. It knows the slope of the land better than any map. It can sense the shift of seasons in the color of its water, the speed of its flow, the pause before the first frost. It is never lost, even when it splits or bends, because it is always remembering where it began, and always moving toward where it belongs. As the river leaves the mountain's shadow behind, it does not become something new. It becomes more of what it has always been. It grows wider, deeper, braver. The land opens around it, and the river responds by stretching its arms, embracing the earth with longer curves, gentler turns. It has left behind the cold clarity of alpine air and entered a warmer world, one where grasses bend to sip and insects hover like tiny dancers. Yet even here, far from its beginning, the river still carries the mountain with it, in its minerals, in its motion, in its memory. Every ripple is a thread, tying past to present, height to depth, solitude to gathering. As the river flows through valleys and fields, it does not rush. It observes. It learns the lay of the land, the soft places and the hard ones, the roots that hold firm and the banks that give way. It weaves stories as it goes, of landslides and bird calls, of rainstorms and thirsty soil. It touches the feet of trees and the bellies of bridges. It reflects the sky by day, the stars by night. It mirrors everything, yet holds nothing. That is the nature of a river, to witness without grasping, to carry without keeping. Its wisdom lies in letting go, even as it moves forward with unwavering memory. Sometimes the river must choose, left or right, swift or still. It splits around islands, dips into hollows, presses through narrow gorges. These decisions are quiet but not random. The river feels its way, following the shape of the land, the pull of gravity, the echo of the mountain that still hums in its current. And sometimes, when the land forgets the mountain, the river reminds it. It cuts channels through dry places. It rises during floods, tracing old paths long buried. It speaks not in warnings but in movement. In its rising and falling, it tells the land, I am still coming from somewhere. I still remember. The river also carries more than water. It carries life. Fish dart beneath its surface, some born in its upper reaches, some arriving from far away. They navigate by scent, by current, by ancient maps written in blood and bone. Turtles bask on its banks. Frogs call from hidden pools. And everywhere, from insects to birds to mammals large and small, life comes to the river to drink, to feed, to cool, to begin. It is not just a path, it is a source. Entire ecosystems bloom around it, dependent on its steady offering. And the river gives, not all at once, but continually, rhythmically, like a breath drawn from the chest of the world. As the seasons shift, so does the river. In spring it swells with snowmelt, a rush of remembrance from the mountaintops. In summer it slows, grows warmer, shimmers with reflected heat. Autumn brings leaves that drift and swirl, temporary passengers on an endless journey. And winter slows everything. Ice clings to the edges. The current quiets but never stills. Beneath the frost, the river still moves, holding its breath, waiting. It never truly sleeps because memory does not sleep. It rests, but it listens. And in listening, it becomes ready for the thaw, for the rain, for the return of flow. Through it all, the river never loses itself. It changes shape, yes. It bends, deepens, widens, but it remains true. Its memory is in every molecule, in every shimmer and curve. It may not speak, but it knows. It knows the high places. It knows the melting snow. It knows the call of gravity, the shape of time, the promise of arrival. It is not simply going somewhere, it is bringing something with it. A story told not in words but in water. And even as it passes new places, new trees, new skis, it keeps that story alive. It carries the mountain in its chest and it carries it forward. Eventually, the river reaches its final stretch, not an end but a transformation. It slows, widens further, becoming calm in its knowing. This is where land and water begin to blur, where marshes cradle the edges and reeds rise like quiet sentinels. Birds nest in the tall grasses. The sun sets over a waterline that shifts with every tide, every breath of wind. The river does not resist this change. It embraces it, knowing that the journey has always pointed here, not to a stopping point but to a becoming. It is not the same river that once dripped from the mountain's edge, but it is still the same memory. The river begins to taste the sea. A gentle salt creeps into its current. Tides push back against its flow like an old friend greeting a traveler who has returned from afar. Fresh water meets salt, and in that mingling something beautiful happens. Estuaries form, nurseries of life where species thrive in the balance between two worlds. Here, the river gives one final gift: the mountain's minerals, the valley's soil, the forest's leaves, the memory of every place it has passed through. All of it is offered to the ocean, not with sorrow but with grace. This is the fulfillment of the river's purpose, not to keep but to carry, not to hold but to connect. And the ocean, vast and deep, receives it without question. It does not ask where the water has been, it welcomes. The river's fresh current slips into salt water, joins the tide, and becomes part of something larger. It loses its name but not its story. For nothing is ever truly lost in water, only changed. Molecules rise into clouds, fall again as rain, slip back into soil, and begin the journey once more. Somewhere, high in the mountains, snow begins to melt. A drop slides over stone. A new river is born, and though it will take a different path, touch different trees, reflect different skis, it will still remember, because every river is part of the same memory, reshaped and retold. The river's journey teaches us what it means to move forward while holding on to where we came from. It teaches us to flow with purpose, to change without forgetting. It reminds us that every path leaves a trace, even if it fades. It shows us that strength is not always in force, but in persistence, in the quiet return again and again to the work of motion, of giving, of belonging. We are not so different. We carry stories in our bones, memories in our movements. Like rivers, we are shaped by what we pass through, by who we meet, by what we give away. And like rivers, we are always moving towards something, sometimes known, sometimes not, but always with echoes of where we began. So when you see a river, whether narrow or wide, quiet or rushing, listen, not just to the sound of water on stone, but to the deeper song beneath it. The song that tells of mountains and rain, of roots and stars, of time and tenderness. The song that says, I remember, I have traveled far, I have loved many places, and I am still flowing, always flowing, toward light, toward openness, toward becoming the sea. There is a moment just before the rain begins when the world holds its breath. The wind softens, the sky darkens but does not roar. Leaves tilt slightly, almost as if listening. And then the first drop falls not as a command but as a whisper. It taps gently on a leaf, rolls down its spine, and disappears into the soil. This is how the rain speaks, not in loud declarations but in soft, persistent syllables. It does not need words to be understood. Every creature knows its voice. Every root, every rock, every wing knows how to listen when rain begins to speak. The language of rain is older than any alphabet. It began when the earth was still cooling, when steam became clouds and clouds became rain. It is a language spoken in rhythm, sometimes steady like a drum, sometimes scattered like fingers tapping a window pane. To the untrained ear it may sound like randomness, but to the soil, the trees, the rivers, it is fluent. Each variation tells a different story. A light drizzle carries patience, a gentle waking of seeds. A sudden downpour brings urgency, calling streams into motion. Thunderstorms shout, but even in their drama, the rain is consistent, falling, always falling, as if reminding the earth of something it once knew but forgot. Raindrops are messengers. They fall from clouds that drift across oceans, carrying tiny pieces of sea and sky, dust from deserts, smoke from distant fires. Each drop is a world traveler. By the time it reaches the ground, it may have circled the globe, gathered stories in vapor, danced with wind, and found its shape only in the last moment. When it lands, it does not vanish. It seeps, it pools, it joins. It finds others and begins to move, pulling the language of rain into streams, rivers, lakes. The conversation continues, long after the clouds have passed. And when it rains, the world responds. Leaves glisten, stretching wider to catch more drops. Soil loosens and breathes deeply. Birds grow quiet, listening, then sing anew when it slows. Even people pause, they look up. They reach out hands. Children splash in puddles not to make noise but to join the song. Windows blur, streets shine, and the ordinary world becomes softer, reflective. Rain changes how things sound, how things look, how things feel. It makes corners blur and colors deepen. It slows time, stretches silence, and invites everything to pay closer attention. The rain also speaks to memory. Its scent, sharp and earthy, can transport us backward to places we've walked, to roofs we've sat beneath, to days when the world felt quieter. That smell, what scientists call petrichor, is more than just chemistry. It's recognition. The land remembering water. And us remembering something too. Maybe a story, maybe a feeling, maybe just the comfort of knowing that something ancient is still happening, right now, above and around us. When it rains, we do not just get wet. We become part of a cycle older than our thoughts, more persistent than our plans. A drop falls on your skin. It is cool, it is brief, and then it is gone. But for that moment, it touches you with the same grace it gave the mountain, the tree, the field. It does not ask permission, it simply includes you. And in that inclusion, you are reminded, gently, clearly, that you are part of something larger, something moving, something speaking, even when it is silent. Let's drift deeper now, into the heart of how rain moves through the world, not just as water, but as meaning. When it falls, it doesn't choose favorites. It touches everything: stone, leaf, roof, fur, feather, skin. It rolls across pavement and moss alike, treating each surface as part of the same unfolding message. This is because rain doesn't belong to one place. It belongs to motion. It exists in the space between cloud and ground, between sky and soil, between longing and return. And it is always in translation, turning vapor into touch, turning silence into sound. Plants speak rain's language with special grace. Their roots, always listening, stretch toward moisture they can't yet feel. Leaves, broad and open, become instruments of reception. The sound of rain on a forest canopy is not random. It's a symphony. Fat drops pluck wide leaves like drums, thinner ones strike needles like strings. Moss hums softly. The entire forest becomes a listening body, absorbing not just water but rhythm. Even underground, fungi extend their threads, fine as whispers, to catch the gifts rain delivers. The forest doesn't just grow because of rain. It listens for it. It prepares for it. It remembers it. Animals too adjust their rhythm. Ants rush to secure their homes. Birds find the right branch that won't bounce too wildly. Frogs come alive, singing from puddles with joy so loud it echoes. Earthworms rise, sensing the softening soil. Each species holds a kind of agreement with the rain, a pattern of knowing when to wait, when to emerge, when to sing, when to burrow. It's not a language we were taught, but one we can witness. A choreography shaped by need and response, by past and instinct. Rain teaches without speaking. Its lessons are in the way life leans toward it. Even in places where rain is rare, its presence is sacred. In deserts, the first drop is a blessing, and everything seems to awaken at once. Seeds that have waited for years in the dry heat suddenly bloom in wild color, as if remembering how to live. In dry lands, animals and plants don't just survive the absence of rain, they store the memory of it. They hold onto every trace, stretch every molecule, and stretch their roots deep into stone just for a hint of moisture. And when the sky finally releases its long-held gift, the celebration is immediate. It is not just nourishment, it is recognition. The sky has not forgotten us, it still speaks. Humans, too, are shaped by this language. Not just physically, though we are mostly water, but emotionally. Rain affects mood, memory, pace. It softens our thoughts, it pulls us inward. We slow down, look out windows, listen to the tapping on rooftops. We write poems about it, sing songs under it, fall in love in its presence. Across cultures and centuries, rain has been seen as cleansing, as renewal, as grace. Ancient peoples dance for it. Farmers still look to clouds with hope. City dwellers pause their rush when the first drop lands. No matter who we are, rain speaks to us. Not loudly, but intimately. And what it tells us is simple but profound. Things return. Cycles matter. The sky, though high and far, comes back to the earth again and again. Not to stay, but to bless, to remind, to connect. In this way, rain becomes a thread that stitches together the upper and lower worlds. It brings the above into the below. It turns distance into closeness. And every time it falls, it tells the same story in a different voice. Sometimes as a storm, sometimes as a mist, sometimes as a soft evening drizzle that barely makes a sound. But always, always as a message. You are part of something that moves, that nourishes, that remembers. As the final drops begin to fall and the storm begins to pass, the language of rain does not end, it transforms. The world after rain holds its own quiet vocabulary. Puddles reflect the sky like memory mirrors. Leaves tremble under beads of water, releasing them one by one like a last whisper. The air is clearer, touched by something that feels like stillness, but is actually motion slowed to its softest form. Even silence changes. It is deeper, like a room after music has ended, filled with the gentle echo of something that was just here, just singing. This, too, is part of the rain's message. What falls must also rest. What touches must also leave gently. In the aftermath, the earth is darker in color, richer in scent. The outlines of things feel sharper, more grounded, as if rain has reminded them of their shape. Rain doesn't erase, it reveals. It washes away dust but leaves behind detail. The lines in bark, the veins in leaves, the tiny indentations in stone, all become more visible. Water traces them and makes them known again. We begin to see the world not as static, but as something written upon by the sky. The rain has been here, and it has spoken to everything, leaving behind a temporary script of droplets and dampness. Animals emerge too, stepping softly into this refreshed world. Birds fluff their feathers, insects resume their dance, and mammals move more freely now that the heat or dust has been softened. The soil, damp and loose, begins to rearrange itself, making way for new growth. Seeds that were waiting in stillness begin to stir, their hard shells soften just enough to open. The rain, though no longer falling, is still working. In roots, in cracks, in every dark space beneath the surface, it continues its quiet labor of nourishment and transformation. And in our minds, too, something shifts. Rain does not only wet our skin, it slows our thoughts. It invites reflection. There is a reason we feel closer to ourselves when walking under a gray sky. A reason we write more, remember more, feel more when it rains. The rhythm of it matches something in us. Not the fast, flashing thoughts of distraction, but the slow, steady pulse of deep feeling. The rain gives us permission to pause, to sit with what we are feeling, to listen to what we might have missed in the noise of dryness and sun. It is not sadness, but softness. Not melancholy, but meaning. The kind that only emerges when everything else grows quiet. In cities, rain falls just the same, and yet it feels different. It gathers in gutters, streaks down windows, plays drums on metal roofs and sidewalks. But even here, among stone and steel, it brings life. It reminds us that we are not above the weather, but within it. That beneath our layers of asphalt and schedule, we still respond to the sky. Umbrellas open like flowers. People walk slower. A shared hush falls, and even the sound of traffic seems to fade. The city, too, listens, perhaps reluctantly but unmistakably. Eventually, the last drop falls. The clouds begin to part. Light returns not with a shout but with a gentle brightness. The world, washed, breathes again, but the rain is not gone. It lingers in the air, in the soil, in the bloodstream of every living thing it touched. It rises again soon, joining mist, joining sky. It will fall again somewhere else with a different voice, a different rhythm. but it will say the same thing: you are not forgotten. You are part of this. You belong to a world that listens, a world that remembers, a world that speaks softly and endlessly in the secret language of rain. High above the world we walk, the clouds drift without hurry. They float through sky not as passengers, but as carriers of something unseen. They are more than vapor, more than fluff or decoration. They are vessels of time. Each cloud is a gathering of the past, a collection of moments transformed into mist, held briefly in the sky before they return to the earth again. A cloud is a memory shaped by wind, a story held between evaporation and fall. And while we watch them from below, seeing animals or castles in their shapes, they carry something far more meaningful than what we imagine. They carry time, not in hours or minutes, but in journeys and returns. Clouds begin in warmth. When the sun touches oceans, rivers, lakes, and skin, water begins to rise. It becomes invisible first, a vapor escaping upward. But once it climbs high enough into the cool layers of the sky, it slows down. It gathers. Molecules find each other and hold on. Tiny droplets begin to form around dust, salt, or pollen, whatever fragment is there to cling to. And together these droplets grow into clouds. In every one of them the earth has risen. Not as solid matter, but as memory, transformed into air and gathered into sky. The clouds we see are the floating breath of the planet. They drift not aimlessly but thoughtfully. Moved by wind patterns shaped by geography and heat, they follow paths that have existed for centuries. Some rise in the tropics and spiral across oceans. Others hug mountain ranges or glide quietly above plains. A single cloud may hold vapor from 1,000 sources, a melting glacier, a blooming forest, a city street, and within it time blends. The present joins the past, and together they wait, for the right conditions, for enough weight, for the soft pull of gravity to say, it's time to fall. But before they release, clouds reflect. They soften the sun's brightness, casting shade over deserts and comfort over crowds. They glow at dawn and blaze at dusk, painting the sky with colors the earth alone could never make. These moments are more than beauty, they are time made visible. The angle of the sun, the thickness of the air, the journey of moisture all come together to create light that feels like memory. When the sky turns golden or pink or violet, we are not just seeing color, we are witnessing the blending of now and then. The light is curved by time, and the clouds carry it gently. Even their shadows are soft measurements of time. As clouds pass overhead, they shift the warmth of the earth beneath them. They cool the skin. They dim the field. They pause the movement of insects and people alike. These passing shadows remind us that time is not always marked by ticking or alarms. Sometimes it's marked by a momentary shade, by a breath of wind, by the way a room darkens without warning and then brightens again. Time passes in these quiet shifts, and clouds are the hands of that invisible clock. And then there are the days when the clouds gather and grow heavy, when the weight of their memory becomes too much to hold. That is when time falls. It does not crash. It returns gently, sometimes fiercely, but always as a part of a cycle. Rain begins and the journey comes full circle. What was once sea or breath or mist has become sky and now becomes earth again. This is how the planet keeps time, not in seconds but in cycles, not in machines but in moisture, not in noise but in falling clouds. Let's rise now into the sky, not to escape the earth, but to understand how deeply the sky is tied to it. Clouds, after all, are not separate from the land below. They are the breath the earth releases. They carry moisture, yes, but they also carry clues. In their shape, scientists read humidity, pressure, and temperature. In their movement, pilots chart safe paths and farmers predict the future. But even before we had tools or science, we looked to the clouds. Ancient peoples read them like pages in the sky. Wispy cirrus high above meant a change was coming. Low gray sheets whispered of steady rain. Towering cumulus built like mountains told of thunder and winds. This was not superstition, it was attention. People listened to clouds not with instruments but with instinct. And in that listening, they learned to live with the rhythm of time. But clouds do more than signal weather. They shape light. A clear sky lets sunlight pour down directly, sharp and full. But a clouded sky scatters that light, softens it, diffuses it. The shadows become gentler, the colors more muted. The world becomes quieter beneath a blanket of gray. This dimming is not sadness, it is rest. It is a pause in the glare, a cool breath in the brightness. In some cultures, overcast days are seen not as gloomy, but as sacred, a time for inwardness, for reflection. Because clouds bring a different kind of time, one not for action, but for listening. Sometimes clouds build into great storms. They climb the sky in layers, drawing energy from the earth's warmth and the sky's coolness. Inside them, lightning begins to form, not in chaos but in balance, a separation of charges, a tension waiting to release. Thunder follows, not as punishment but as echo, and rain falls. Hard or soft, warm or cold, it always falls as completion. The storm may be loud, but the cloud's purpose is not anger, it is release. It holds time until it can no longer, then gives it back in water, in sound, in wind. And after the storm, the clouds shift again. They break apart, letting light spill through in scattered beams. These shafts of sun, called crepuscular rays, seem to reach down from heaven, but they are simply sunlight moving through the spaces between water. And yet they move us. They remind us of something beyond weather, something almost spiritual. As if the sky, having held so much, now opens its hands and says, "I have carried this for you, and now I let it go." Above the clouds always there is light. Even when the earth below is shadowed, the tops of clouds shine. Airplane passengers see it, sunlight turning clouds into golden plains, cotton hills, endless fields of light. This light is always there. The clouds do not hide it, they carry it. They give it form. They slow it down so we can see it differently. So that time does not rush past us in brightness but flows through veils and softness. In this way, clouds teach us about gentleness, about how even light benefits from rest. Clouds also help keep balance. They reflect sunlight, cooling the planet. They trap heat, warming the night. They distribute moisture across continents. Without clouds, there would be no rain. Without rain, no rivers. Without rivers, no life. They may seem passive, but clouds are architects. They move nutrients. They shape climates. They decide where green will grow and where deserts will form. And all the while they are changing, forming, drifting, dissolving, reforming again. They are never still, yet never hurried. They remind us that transformation can be quiet. So when you look up, remember, the sky is not still. It is a slow ocean of air, and clouds are its traveling ships. They sail not aimlessly but purposefully, carrying time, carrying water, carrying the memory of warmth turned into air, turned into motion, turned into return. They are not decorations. They are messages, not warnings but reminders. That time moves, that cycle's complete, that everything eventually comes home. Now let us follow the clouds to the last part of their journey, not their end but their return. After drifting for miles, after carrying time across skis and shading deserts and forests alike, they reach a moment of letting go. The air cools. The weight inside them becomes too much, and they begin to release what they've held so gently. Drop by drop, rain begins to fall. It does not fall randomly. It falls with rhythm, with purpose. It touches mountaintops and city roofs, quiet fields and crowded sidewalks. Each place it lands becomes part of the cycle. Each drop is the past returning as nourishment. The rain does not always announce itself. Sometimes it comes suddenly, in great bursts that soak the world. Sometimes it begins so gently that you barely notice until your hair feels cool and your skin carries a shimmer. And sometimes it stays high, not falling at all, but gliding along mountaintops as mist, as fog, as breath that doesn't want to land just yet. In each form, the cloud continues its work, not of ending, but of sharing. What it gathered in silence, it gives freely. What it held in stillness, it offers in motion. There is no pride in it, only grace. After the rain, clouds do not disappear in shame or vanish in triumph. They soften, they thin. They stretch into long brushstrokes across the sky, and the sun slowly begins to return. It peers between the remnants of the storm, casting light through droplets still hanging in the air. And sometimes, if the angles are right, if the timing is perfect, those drops become a prism. A rainbow appears, not as a promise in words, but as a reflection of light passing through memory. It is the quiet announcement that the cloud has done its work, That time has returned full circle. The rainbow, brief as it may be, tells us something essential, that beauty does not need to last to be real, that even the softest moments can carry the most meaning. It reminds us that the rain was not just water falling, it was the sky remembering the earth and then returning to it. The rainbow is the sky smiling at its own reflection, knowing that something ancient has just happened again and that someone might be watching. The clouds, now nearly gone, leave behind a world changed. The soil is darker, alive. The leaves are clean. The streams are fuller. The air smells of minerals and freshness. Creatures emerge, the world resumes, but everything moves with just a little more softness. As if the rain has reminded us all to slow down, to look closely, to breathe in the moment before it passes. The sky may have cleared, but the message lingers. The cloud may have vanished, but its memory is in every drop left behind. And soon the cycle begins again. The sun warms the wet ground. Water rises. Vapors twist upward, invisible at first, then gathering once more into the sky. Clouds form again, carrying new stories. They are never the same clouds, but they carry the same purpose: to move, to hold, to reflect, to release. They are time made visible, emotion made weather, memory made motion. They are never in a hurry, but they are never lost. They follow the rhythm of a planet that breathes in cycles and speaks in seasons. So the next time you look up and see a cloud, let it remind you something is being held, something is being carried. Not just moisture, not just weather, but time. Your time. Time from before you were born. Time that fell on fields your ancestors walked. Time that touched rivers you've never seen. And someday that same cloud will release its gift, and it will fall on you or near you or into something that feeds you. And in that drop will be a story, not told in language but felt in the hush of air, the cool of shade, the soft presence of something old returning once again. That is how clouds carry time. And that is how we, without knowing it, live inside the skies remembering. Deep beneath the surface of the earth, far below the reach of sunlight and root, water waits. It does not rush. It does not call out. It simply rests, held in stone and sand, in the smallest pockets of space between grains of soil. This water is ancient, older than cities, older than trees, older even than rivers. It has not seen the sky in centuries, perhaps millennia. And yet it is still here, quiet and whole, like a forgotten breath held in the chest of the earth. These hidden reservoirs, these aquifers, are the wells beneath our bones. They do not flow like rivers, but they move all the same, slowly, deeply, with the patience of mountains. This underground water is not separate from us. It shapes us, fills us, steadies us. The water we drink, the water that feeds the roots of our crops and cools the pulse of our cities, much of it comes from these hidden places, and we carry it literally within our bodies. The human body is mostly water, and some of that water, somewhere in its cycle, has passed through these underground reservoirs. We are not just walking on the earth, we are filled with its memory. Every time we sip, every time we sweat, every time we cry, we release a little of that deep silence into the world again. The journey to become underground water is long and gentle. Rain falls, seeps into the soil, trickles past roots and stones, finding its way downward, pulled by gravity, drawn toward stillness. It moves through layers of earth like a whisper, soaking into porous rock, slowed by clay, guided by fault lines and fractures. And when it settles, it becomes part of something vast, a slow ocean beneath the land. There are places where this water gathers in caves, wide and echoing. There are places where it hugs the stone so tightly that only the smallest drops can move. But everywhere it goes, it carries the above within it. It remembers the clouds, the rivers, the mountains. Life responds to this water in quiet ways. Roots grow deeper, bending toward it. Trees with access to groundwater live longer, stand taller, sway more gently in the wind. In deserts where rain is rare, plants survive by reaching into these ancient stores. Even animals learn to find it, following scents, listening for the echo of hollowness in the earth. Some can smell moisture buried deep beneath dry ground. Some dig with practiced patience. Others simply wait, knowing the earth will give when the time is right. These are not tricks. They are inherited wisdom, body knowledge passed down through generations, all built on the trust that water is never far, even when invisible. For humans too, wells have always been sacred. They were among the first things we built. Not houses, not walls, but wells. Circles dug into the ground with bare hands or shaped with stone, inviting the earth to reveal what it held. In villages and cities, wells became gathering places, centers of life, where stories were told as jars were filled. The act of drawing water has always been more than utility, it is communion. With the land, with each other, with the past. To draw water from a well is to say, we remember that the earth gives, and that we, in turn, must care for what we cannot see. But not all underground water comes from rain. Some of it has been there since the beginning, trapped when the earth first formed, sealed within stone. These are the deepest wells, the oldest waters, and though we rarely touch them, they are still part of the story. They remind us that the earth has been holding water long before we asked for it, that the planet itself is not dry or empty inside, but full of motion, of offering, of quiet abundance. Even in darkness, even in silence, water waits. Not because it must, but because it can. Let us now move further inward, not downward into rock, but inward into the way we carry this hidden water within ourselves. Just as the earth holds water in secret chambers beneath its crust, our bodies hold it in vessels that never stop moving. Blood flows through us like a river underground, silent and purposeful. Inside each cell, water cushions, transports, connects. It carries oxygen, memory, heat. Our bones, though hard and quiet, are not dry. They too hold moisture, locked in marrow, woven into the very structure that holds us upright. We walk each day as if solid, but we are fluid. Beneath every movement is a reservoir, every breath a tide. We are walking wells, filled with borrowed water that once touched stars and stones alike. In ancient times, healers believed that sickness was a disruption in the body's flow, that something had gone still or become blocked or forgotten how to move. They weren't wrong. Modern science has given names to those flows, circulation, lymph, plasma, but the truth remains the same. Water within us must move. When we are well, it flows freely, tending to what is hurt, cooling what is hot, feeding what is dry. When we are not, the water within us slows, thickens, becomes confused. To heal is often to return to that flow, to invite the body to remember what it once knew about motion, about balance. And just like the earth, our own inner wells can run low. Dehydration does not come suddenly, it arrives like a slow forgetting, a fatigue in the muscles, a dulling of thought, a dryness in the mouth that speaks not only of thirst but of the body's quiet cry for return. And when we drink, truly drink, we are not just quenching, we are restoring. We are saying to our body, I see you, I remember you, I will fill what has been emptied. There is something almost sacred in the act of drinking clean water. It is the most ordinary miracle. It connects us to the sky, to the mountain, to the hidden caverns beneath our feet. Communities have always known this. Wells have long been guarded and revered. In some places they are still given names, still honored with ribbons or stones, still visited with silence. Because the people know, what is below sustains what is above. What is unseen holds up all that is visible. The water that takes centuries to form beneath our ground is not something to be taken lightly. When we drill, when we draw, when we build pumps and tunnels to bring it upward, we are reaching into the earth's deepest patience. We must do so gently, respectfully, with care. Yet in many places that balance is now strained. We are drawing more than the earth can give. The wells are being emptied faster than the rain can refill them. Aquifers that took thousands of years to form are shrinking in decades. What once was deep silence now echoes with absence. In some regions, the ground itself sinks, losing its strength without the water that once supported it. Crops wither, rivers run thin, cities thirst. And beneath it all, the earth waits for the return of balance, for the memory of enough. It has given freely, it still gives, but even the deepest wells must rest. And still water remains. It hides in forgotten stones, it clings to roots miles below. It whispers through cracks no map has marked. And there in that waiting is a lesson that resilience is quiet, that hope is slow, that what sustains us often moves unseen beneath the loudness of surface life. We may not always hear it, But when we pause, when we close our eyes and feel the pulse behind our ribs, we are reminded the water is still there, circling, carrying, remembering. And if we move gently, it will rise again. It always has. And now we arrive at the final place in this journey, not the bottom of the well, but the understanding of what it means to hold water inside us, to walk upon it, to depend on it in ways we forget until we feel its absence. The water beneath our feet and within our veins is not a resource, it is a relationship, a silent agreement between the body and the earth, the sky and the root, the present and the deep past. Wells are not just holes in the ground, they are windows into time, into patience, into trust. Every drop drawn is not only a moment of survival, it is a return to something ancient, something that never asked to be found but always welcomed being remembered. Beneath ancient cities, water still flows through hidden channels once carved by hand. In remote deserts, stone cisterns catch the rare rainfall, storing it with reverence. In forests, moss and spongy ground hold it gently, feeding entire ecosystems without needing to be seen. And in places where water is most scarce, it is honored most deeply. It is not wasted. It is touched with gratitude. There, a small sip means everything. A shared cup becomes ceremony. The well is not only a place of water, but of gathering, of story, of life repeating itself in circles drawn by hands in time. Even in our modern lives, where water seems to appear with a twist of a faucet or the press of a button, the truth remains unchanged. All of it comes from somewhere, from deep within stone, from melted snow, from clouds that once held the sea. It is easy to forget, but forgetting is dangerous. When we believe water is endless, we forget our place in the cycle. When we assume it will always be there, we stop listening for the quiet signs of strain, the slow drop in aquifers, the cracked soil. The empty wells. These are not just warnings, they are questions. Will we remember what the earth has given? Will we treat water not as a product but as a gift? But there is hope in remembering, hope in restoration. In many places, people are learning to return what they take. Rain gardens and recharge basins, forest restoration and wiser farming, cities designing with water in mind, not against it, individuals choosing to protect, not just to consume. And with each effort, the earth responds. The water begins to rise again, slowly, quietly, as it always has. Because the wells beneath our bones are not just physical, they are metaphors for how we care, for how we connect, for how we honor the unseen. And perhaps that is the final lesson, that we are not separate from the water that sustains us, we are part of it. Every drop that moves through us once moved through rivers, through clouds, through roots. The sweat on our brow, the tears we shed, the breath we release, they are all forms of returning. We do not own water, we are borrowed by it, shaped by it, held by it. And when we go, when we leave this life, it will carry us still in mist, in soil, in memory. Just as it has carried mountains to the sea and deserts into bloom. So the next time you drink, pause. Feel the coolness on your tongue, trace its path inside you. Know that it comes from a place deeper than the ground, deeper than the map. It comes from a time before names, a time when the earth exhaled and the sky returned the favor, a time still alive, still moving, still whispering beneath your feet. That is the sound of the well, that is the water waiting, and that is the story of what lies beneath, of what flows within, of the wells that have always lived inside our bones. There is a moment, almost too subtle to notice, when water begins to rise. It leaves behind the shape of its container, the coolness of its liquid state, and drifts upward as vapor, silent, invisible, certain. This is evaporation, the breath of water. It does not shout or burst. It exhales slowly, like steam lifting from warm skin or mist leaving the surface of a morning lake. It is movement without motion, change without noise. In that rising there is transformation. A puddle becomes air. A droplet becomes sky, and what was once bound becomes free, weightless, part of something much larger. This is not the end of water, it is its continuation, its soft leap from earth to atmosphere, from touch to memory. Evaporation begins with warmth, not heat that burns, but heat that invites. The sun brushes its fingers across the surface of the ocean, a leaf, a stone left out in rain. The molecules inside begin to stir. Some rise faster than others. Some reach escape velocity not from fear but from readiness. They rise one by one, a slow ascent invisible to the eye, yet fundamental to life. This is how clouds are born, how rains are prepared, how rivers are refilled. The water we drink today may once have risen from an ancient sea, traveled for weeks in a cloud, and fallen silently onto the forest floor. And it is not just sun that calls water upward. Wind plays a part too, brushing away the humid air above and making space for more vapor to rise. Even the curve of a mountain, the tilt of a valley, can guide the breath of water. It's not a single act, it's a collaboration between sky and land, between energy and stillness. A conversation without words. And through it all, water moves not in lines but in layers, not in noise but in rhythm. This movement is everywhere always. From the surface of your skin to the edge of the sea. From a blade of grass to a city sidewalk after rain. Plants have their own way of joining the cycle. Through tiny pores in their leaves, they release water into the air, a process called transpiration. It is their way of breathing, their way of cooling, their way of giving back. A forest seen from above is not just green. It is exhaling. It is feeding the clouds. A single tree can release hundreds of liters of water each day, not in gushes, but in the gentlest mist. This moisture rises, joins the sky, and begins the process anew. In this way, evaporation is not simply science, it is generosity. Even our own breath carries water. With every exhale, a small plume of moisture leaves us, joins the air, and becomes part of the atmosphere. We don't see it, but it's there, in the fog on a winter morning, in the condensation on a mirror, in the faint shimmer of heat above dry ground. Our bodies participate in the great cycle, not just through rivers and rain, but through sighs, through whispers, through sleep. We are part of the sky even as we stand rooted to the earth. In deserts where water is scarce, evaporation becomes precious. Every drop lost is felt. Every shadow cast is a shelter. People learn to shade water to keep it still, to protect it from the sun's pull. And yet even here, water finds a way to rise, through cacti, through soil, through the breath of animals sleeping in the shade. It is not a loss. It is a gift. The gift of water returning to the sky, of motion continuing even in stillness. The desert teaches that evaporation is not absence, but promise. A promise that the sky will one day give back what the earth has offered. So when you see a puddle shrinking, a cup steaming, a window fogging, remember this. You are watching the breath of water. You are witnessing its silent journey skyward, its return to the cycle, its leap into the invisible. It is not an ending. It is the beginning of return. As vapor climbs into the sky, it carries with it more than water. It carries temperature, memory, even a trace of the place it left behind. The molecules that rise from a quiet lake are not the same as those from the sea. The vapor from a leaf smells faintly of green, of light filtered through veins and chlorophyll. The breath of a forest smells different than the breath of a desert, and the clouds that form above them carry these scents in their bones. This is how the world shares its stories, through evaporation. It's how distant places touch each other, how the ocean speaks to the mountain, how the rainforest reaches the plains. Not loudly, not directly, but through vapor rising upward like a secret being passed hand to hand through the atmosphere. And all of this happens in silence. No explosion, no siren, just the slow shifting of phase from liquid to gas, from here to somewhere else. The energy required to evaporate water, what scientists call latent heat, is borrowed from the sun, from the air, from the ground. It's a gentle exchange. No smoke, no residue, just transformation. And in giving up that energy, water cools what it leaves behind. That's why your skin feels cooler after a breeze moves across it. It's not just the wind, it's the evaporation drawing heat away like a lullaby in motion. In this way, evaporation regulates climate, calms storms, feeds winds. It is a quiet architect of balance. Above the earth, clouds begin to gather the evaporated breath of the world. And here in the cold embrace of the sky, that vapor begins to change once again. It finds dust particles, tiny salt crystals, bits of pollen, anchors in the open air. Around these, water begins to condense. From gas back to liquid. From breath back to form. And so droplets are born hanging in the air, suspended by wind and temperature, waiting. What once rose as invisible mist now takes shape as visible promise. And still, the journey is not over. It is only midway, a pause before falling, a hush before return. This cycle is not rushed. Water may linger in the sky for days, weeks. It may drift across oceans, riding high above continents, changing shape with every new current of air. One molecule that rose from a child's outstretched hand might circle the globe before falling again. It might become part of a snowflake, a raindrop, a crystal of hail. It might not fall at all for years, instead joining the thin veil of moisture that wraps our planet and keeps it warm, keeps it alive. Water does not mind waiting. It moves at the pace of balance. The breath of evaporation is not only external, it lives within the soil too. Even in cold ground, evaporation takes place, slow, subtle, constant. Water rises through capillaries in the dirt, drawn by sun and air. It slips upward through roots, through pores in leaves, through the green lungs of the planet, and from there it escapes again, unnoticed but essential. In this way, evaporation binds the underground with the open sky. It connects what is hidden with what is seen. It builds a bridge between shadow and light. We see its evidence in the smallest things. A cup of tea steaming in the morning chill, clothes drying on a line fluttering in the afternoon sun, a field shimmering under heat waves that rise and dance like transparent spirits. Each is a quiet conversation between heat and water, between the seen and the unseen. And in every case, it is the same movement, the same rising, the same release. It is nature exhaling, the world breathing through water. Even in places of deep cold, evaporation continues. It happens from snowfields, from ice sheets, from frozen lakes. Sublimation, it's called, the direct transition from solid to vapor. No melting, no middle, just a quiet leap from ice to sky. It is slow, nearly imperceptible. But over time, even the thickest glaciers give up their breath to the air. In this way, even the frozen parts of our world continue to speak. Even they continue to rise. So let us not mistake stillness for silence. The breath of evaporation is always present. In every climate, on every continent, across every hour of the day. It moves through us, around us, above us. It connects what was to what will be. It is the part of water that teaches us how to leave gently, how to rise without shouting, how to change without breaking. In every cloud that forms, in every rain that begins, there is the memory of something that once rose from the earth, softly, invisibly, patiently. That is the breath of evaporation, and it never stops. And now, as we follow the vapor to the final part of its journey, we begin to see that evaporation is not only a scientific process, it is a rhythm of return. What rises must fall, but not in the same shape. What leaves does not disappear, it transforms. The vapor that once left a lake may return as fog clinging to hills, as dew resting on morning petals, as rain soaking into the pages of an old book left beside an open window. Each return is quiet but meaningful. Evaporation teaches that endings are not disappearances. They are beginnings drawn in a softer language. In this return, water writes its memory across every surface it touches. It paints frost patterns on windows, leaves silver threads of condensation on cold glasses, and rests in beads on spiderwebs like tiny planets. None of it is random. Each pattern, each droplet is shaped by temperature, by breath, by the structure of the thing it lands on. Evaporation leaves and reappears not as a duplicate but as a variation. Always familiar, always new. Just as no two thoughts are the same, no two breaths of vapor fall alike. And this falling is just as quiet as the rising. It may take hours for vapor to condense, for clouds to gather, for temperature and pressure to agree. But when it happens, it is inevitable. The sky lets go, mist settles, rain begins. And somewhere beneath an awning or among the leaves someone notices, not just that it's raining, but that the rain feels gentle, thoughtful, earned. That it carries with it something once lost, now returned. This is the final exhale of a process that began long ago, perhaps with sunlight on skin or heat rising from a rock. The rain falling now is not separate from that moment. It is its continuation. And after the rain, what remains is more than wetness. It is a landscape altered in the smallest ways. The scent of earth rises, the deep smell of petrichor, the perfume of soil touched by return. The plants look fuller, the air feels thicker with kindness. Dust settles, sound softens. Even the breeze feels different, as if it has witnessed something sacred. And maybe it has. Maybe evaporation is the sky's way of receiving a story, and rainfall is its answer. A call and response between land and air that never ceases, only shifts form. In our own lives, we experience this cycle too, not just in the water that leaves and returns, but in the emotions that rise quietly within us, shift into air, and settle again as something understood. A sigh is a kind of evaporation, a tear a kind of condensation. The way we let go of grief or hope or wonder, it moves like vapor. It leaves when warmed by time, and sometimes returns in a new form, as memory, as compassion, as stillness. We are weathered by what we feel, shaped by what we release and receive again. Evaporation is often overlooked because it does not demand attention. It happens in plain air, but perhaps that's why it's so powerful. It reminds us that change doesn't have to be loud, that rising doesn't have to be fast, that sometimes the most important transformations happen in silence, beneath perception, above understanding, and still they move us and move through us. So the next time you see steam rising from a mug, or a puddle disappearing beneath the sun, or the shimmer of heat on a distant road, pause. You are witnessing one of the world's oldest conversations. A soft letting go, a promise to return, a journey from earth to sky and back again. And if you listen closely, not with your ears but with your awareness, you'll hear what the water has always whispered through its breath. Nothing is ever truly gone. Everything rises, everything returns, everything continues. In the quietest corners of the world, where cold breathes deeper than sound and sunlight bends gently across endless white, ice remembers everything. It is not lifeless, it is not still. It is time made solid. Beneath its shimmering surface lie layers, each one a page in a book written by snowfall and silence. Ice sheets do not simply freeze water, they freeze history. Every flake that lands carries a trace of air, a whisper of atmosphere, a glimpse into a sky long gone. As it compresses into ice, it seals that moment inside, perfectly preserved, perfectly silent. A memory not meant to be read quickly, but patiently, by those who know how to listen. In glaciers, that memory stretches back thousands of years. Each layer holds the breath of its time, the pollen of distant blooms, the ash of ancient fires, the salt of vanished seas. These are not relics, they are living records, held not in ink, but in the softness of snow turned to stone. When we drill deep into ice, we are not just studying weather, we are touching the air our ancestors once breathed. The ice holds it all, not with possession but with care. It does not guard these memories jealously. It offers them to those who come gently, who ask quietly, who know that time is something you approach with reverence. And ice moves, not quickly, not with chaos, but with the certainty of gravity and the patience of stone. Glaciers flow like thick rivers, carving valleys, shaping coastlines, grinding mountains into dust. Their pace is glacial not because it is slow, but because it is steady, unshaken by hurry, untouched by noise. They carry with them more than cold. They carry ancient dust, seeds of once green fields, the bones of forests swallowed by time. And as they slide forward, they leave behind traces. Striations in rock, pools of meltwater, the soft hush of snow settling where once there was only wind. To live near ice is to understand quiet. It is to feel the presence of something larger than season, larger than life. The animals who make their homes in frozen places do not fight the cold. They move with it, dress in it, sleep beneath its breath. Polar bears pad across white silence. Seals carve breathing holes in solid sea. Even tiny insects find ways to rest within the frost, waiting for a thaw that may not come for weeks. These creatures do not resist the cold. They carry it, learn from it, shape themselves around its rhythm. In their stillness is survival, and in their motion, a kind of grace. For humans too, ice has always been both boundary and invitation. It has kept us from places and led us to others. We have crossed it, feared it, studied it, and celebrated it. We carve sculptures from it, we skate upon it. We measure its thickness and whisper about its retreat, but whether we see it as danger or beauty, we cannot deny its presence. Ice teaches us something most elements do not: how to hold still and how to change. For even the hardest glacier melts. Even the deepest frost eventually drips. Ice does not resist this truth, it accepts it. It remembers that to melt is not to forget but to release. So when you stand in a snowy field or press your fingers to a frozen window, you are not just touching cold. You are touching time. You are feeling the weight of breath held for centuries, waiting for someone to notice. That is what ice does, it waits. Not in silence, but in song. A song so slow, so soft, that only the patient will hear it. The song of memory made solid, of water turned witness, of history frozen beneath the sky. Deep within the frozen heart of a glacier, where sunlight has never reached and wind cannot whisper, time rests in blue. Ice turns deeper in color the older it becomes, shades of sky compressed into something that doesn't move with haste but with depth. If you were to hold a piece of that ancient ice in your hand, you would hear nothing. And yet, what you are holding is the voice of the earth, slowed into silence. Each trapped bubble of air inside it is a tiny time capsule, a breath from a time when mammoths roamed, when forests stood where tundras now lie, when human footsteps had not yet reached the edges of the world. Ice does not forget. It holds its memory carefully, not for itself, but for us. Scientists call these records ice cores, columns pulled from deep within glaciers, each layer representing a season, a year, a century. In them we find more than data, we find story. We see volcanoes erupting in layers of ash. We see droughts in the thinning rings. We see pollution, silence, snowfall, absence. The ice tells us not only what happened, but how the earth responded. It speaks in long pauses, in patterns, in chemistry. And in every sample pulled from deep cold, there is the trace of time breathing, holding steady, waiting to be known. But the ice is not only memory, it is motion. Though it may appear still to our eyes, glaciers creep forward year by year, reshaping the land they touch. They carve wide valleys in polished stone. They grind boulders into sand. They push debris ahead of them in long, low ridges, leaving behind moraine trails like fingerprints of their passage. These scars are not wounds, they are marks of touch. The glacier is the slowest kind of traveler and the most generous. It changes without breaking. It gives shape without rush. And when it recedes, what it leaves behind is not emptiness but possibility, a land made new. Within the ice, rivers are born. Meltwater flows from the base of glaciers, carving tunnels and veins through the frozen mass. These hidden streams are the lifeblood of mountain ecosystems. They emerge into daylight as rushing torrents that feed forests, fields, and cities far below. What begins in silence becomes motion, becomes nourishment, becomes song. The water that nourishes a farmer's field may have begun its journey centuries ago, falling as snow, resting as ice, then rising again as melt. In this way, the memory of ice becomes the promise of water. And water, when it moves, carries the past with it. It remembers the mineral-rich stone it seeped through. It carries the chill of ancient shade. It reflects the color of the sky and the direction of the wind. And as it flows, it teaches us something essential, that memory is not only for keeping, it is for sharing. Ice shares its memory not all at once, but drop by drop. It does not pour, it drips. Each drop a syllable, each stream a sentence, each river a chapter in the long, unfolding book of the earth. Yet even as the glaciers move, they are retreating. In many places, ice is melting faster than it can be replenished. The warmth of the atmosphere seeps into cracks, into surfaces, into depths once thought unreachable. Crevasses open, edges collapse. The song of ice begins to quiet, not by choice but by pressure. And still it continues to give. As it melts, it feeds. As it recedes, it reveals. Fossils, forests, forgotten animals, all rise again from the cold, return to the surface as if waking from sleep. This return is both a gift and a warning. The ice is not angry, it cannot be, but it is honest. It shows us the cost of forgetfulness, of excess, of believing that memory can be discarded. When we lose ice, we lose not just water but a part of the world that remembers for us. We lose a mirror held up to deep time. We lose a calm voice in the storm of change. Yet the ice, even as it melts, teaches. It reminds us that change is part of the cycle, that to shift is not to vanish, that to soften is not to surrender. There is dignity in melting, in flowing, in becoming something else while still carrying the essence of what once was. In this, the memory of ice is not lost, it simply moves. Now imagine the final moment in the journey of ice, not an ending but a change of state. The glacier, having pressed forward for centuries, begins to shrink, edges thin, walls collapse into shining blue pools. What once stood tall and unmoving begins to weep in slow trickles. It does not resist the warmth, it simply responds. This is how ice teaches us to let go, not in a rush but in rhythm. It melts with grace, with memory, with intention. And as it melts, it nourishes valleys, feeds rivers, awakens soil. Its departure is not destruction, it is offering. The water that emerges from melting ice is not new. It is ancient, released from the pause of centuries. When you dip your hand into a glacial stream, you are touching time that has waited. You are meeting a drop that once froze under the breath of clouds no longer in the sky, clouds that formed over lands long changed. And that drop, now warm in your palm, continues its journey, carried by rivers, drawn into plants, maybe rising again into vapor. Its memory does not vanish. It travels. It becomes part of someone else's rain, someone else's morning mist. As the glacier retreats, it reveals the land beneath. Ground that has not seen light in millennia now greets the sun again. And in that light, life begins to stir. Lichens creep across bare rock. Moss softens hard surfaces. Seeds, long dormant in cold silence, begin to grow. This is the quiet regeneration the ice leaves behind. A canvas cleared, a story paused, a chance to begin again. The landscape does not grieve the glacier's absence. It honors it by blooming. Every flower, every root, every whispering breeze through the new grass is a continuation of the glacier's memory. And humans, too, feel this shift. In the far north, where communities have lived alongside ice for generations, the changes are not just seen but felt. Seasons shift. Animals move differently. Old hunting grounds become rivers. New paths must be learned. Elders speak of ice that used to reach the sea, now distant. They remember the sound it made, the way it moved, the color of its shadow. And they carry those memories forward, not as warnings alone, but as love. Love for a land that gave. Love for a cold that taught. Love for a silence that could still be heard. Even in cities far from the poles, the memory of ice touches us. It flows from taps. It chills our drinks. It lingers in the snowflakes that drift past tall buildings. It lies hidden in mountain streams, in reservoirs, in the cool breath of forest air. And though we may not always see it, its presence is always felt, in the way water moves, in the way seasons change, in the way the earth continues to breathe in cycles we are only beginning to understand. And when the last piece of a glacier falls into the sea, a moment called calving, it does so with sound. A great crack, a splash, a wave, not a scream but a farewell. The iceberg that breaks away floats for a while, its jagged form slowly softening in the salt water. It may drift for days, weeks, even months before it finally disappears beneath the surface. And as it melts, it gives all it has held, cold memory, shape, back to the sea. It is not lost, it has returned. This is the final gift of ice, to show us how to hold memory without clinging, to move forward while honoring what came before, to be still long enough to listen, to be strong enough to let go. The memory of ice is not one of permanence, it is one of passage, and it lives on in everything that flows, everything that grows, everything that waits. The snow that falls next winter will carry its breath. The wind that rises across a frozen lake will echo its stillness. And within us, our bodies, our thoughts, our stories, there will always be a trace of the world that once held its breath in frost. Inside your body, where no sunlight reaches, light still lives. Not the kind that shines from bulbs or burns from fire, but a quieter, older kind. Light born of energy, movement, life. It glows in the spark of nerves, in the pulse of cells, in the silent hum of chemical reactions that never stop. Deep in your bones, beneath layers of tissue and time, every atom carries the memory of stars. The calcium in your ribs, the phosphorus in your spine, the magnesium in your blood, all forged in ancient fire, long before your body ever knew shape. You are not only made of light, you are its echo. Bones seem still. They seem like the end point of growth, quiet scaffolding that holds us up. But they are not silent, they are alive. Inside them, marrow produces blood, stem cells divide and renew, messages pass through mineral corridors, keeping balance, releasing minerals, storing memory. Bones are not just structures, they are listeners, they are storytellers. They hold more than weight, they hold rhythm. Each time you move, bones adjust. They stretch microscopically. They sing in frequencies too low for ears to hear. The sound of walking, the lift of a hand, the bend of your neck, all send vibrations through bone. These aren't echoes of noise. They are evidence of life in motion. And still, light lives there. It arrives not only in the form of photons, but in bioelectric pulses, in the soft glow of mitochondria creating energy within cells. Our bodies emit tiny traces of light, biophotons, so faint they can only be seen with the most sensitive tools. This light is not decoration. It's communication. Cells use it to speak, to regulate, to know. When cells divide, they flash. When DNA repairs itself, it glows. Even bones, dense and quiet, participate in this shimmer. By carrying signals, by reacting to stress, by responding to the world outside. You may not see it, but your bones are constantly translating the language of light into the structure of being. In ancient times, people believed bones carried soul, that long after breath left the body, the bones held memory. And perhaps they weren't wrong. Bones survive decay. They outlast flesh. They remain long after voice has faded, as proof that life once stood here. And in those remains there are still traces of light, radioactive isotopes, magnetic signals, minerals charged by sun and sky. We bury the dead in the earth, but part of them returns to the stars. Because bone does not forget where it came from. It was formed by pressure, by gravity, by the fire of the cosmos. It remembers the collapse of stars and the turning of planets. And in every joint, every vertebra, every knuckle, it holds that lineage. When you run, jump, stretch, or simply stand still, you are engaging with that lineage. Your skeleton is not a cage, it's a chorus. Every bone plays a note. The spine hums with balance, the femur beats with strength, the ribs expand and contract like a tide. And all of it is shaped not just by matter but by light, light stored in atoms, light expressed in motion, light carried forward through energy exchange. Even in rest, this system glows. Even in sleep, your body hums. The light does not flicker out, it merely dims, waiting for motion to wake it. And when you are wounded, when a bone breaks, when a joint inflames, your body sends light there too. In the form of heat, of swelling, of repair, cells gather. They whisper instructions through bioelectric sparks. They rebuild, slowly but with purpose. And as they do, they shine. Healing is not only chemistry, it is light learning to reweave form. Your body remembers its shape, and through that memory it restores. Even in pain, even in stillness, light continues. It never leaves you, it only changes direction. Let's drift deeper now into the way light and life intertwine within your bones, not as something distant or rare, but as a constant companion. Every moment, cells within bone tissue perform a delicate dance fueled by tiny bursts of energy, flashes of biophotons that pass signals silently and quickly. These light particles are part of a complex system of communication, connecting cells in a network more intricate than any machine humans have built. It's as if your bones carry a secret code, written not in letters but in pulses of light, guiding growth, repair, and balance. This light helps regulate bone density and shape. When you move, stress guides the formation of new bone. The brighter the signal, the stronger the call to build. This is why exercise is good for bones, not just because it wears them down, but because it awakens the light within, telling cells to renew and strengthen. The skeleton adapts, glowing softly from the inside out, reflecting the history of your movements and choices. It is a living record of your life's rhythm, a luminous map shaped by your days and nights. But bones do more than respond. They influence. They affect the body's chemistry, helping regulate minerals like calcium and phosphate that are essential for life beyond just structure. This regulation is guided by signals, some electrical, some chemical, some perhaps carried by subtle light. Bones act as a kind of internal lighthouse, beaming guidance to organs and tissues, reminding them of their place and function. In this way, light within bones connects the whole body. It is a thread weaving together muscle and marrow, skin and spirit. The interaction between light and bones also helps regulate our internal clocks. Circadian rhythms, the cycles that govern sleep, hunger, and healing, are influenced by signals from the skeleton. Bones respond to hormones, to the changing light outside, and adjust internal processes accordingly. This is why our bodies feel different at dawn and dusk, why some days we wake refreshed and others sluggish. The bones, carrying their own light, participate in this daily symphony. They tune us to the natural rhythms of the planet and cosmos. And in moments of deep rest, sleep, meditation, quiet thought, the glow within our bones does not fade. It pulses gently, maintaining vital communication, guiding regeneration, supporting memory. Even in darkness, it shines. Some scientists believe that biophotons might be linked to consciousness itself, hinting at a connection between light, life, and awareness. Though this is still a mystery, the possibility invites wonder. To be made of light is to carry a spark of the infinite within, a reflection of stars long extinguished, yet still glowing inside us. Beyond our bodies, this connection to light and bone ties us to the universe. The calcium in our bones was forged in the heart of exploding stars, supernovae that scattered matter across galaxies. That matter eventually became part of planets, plants, animals, and us. Every step we take is grounded in that cosmic history. Every breath we draw echoes the rhythm of the stars. Our bones are not just our own. They are part of a vast constellation of light and matter, bound together across time and space. In this way, understanding the light within our bones changes how we see ourselves. We are not separate from the night sky. We are reflections of it. Our bodies are not just flesh and bone, but ancient light made manifest. And in every quiet moment, in every breath and heartbeat, that light continues to shine, guiding, healing, remembering. And now, as we reach the final section of this story, imagine the quiet power that comes from the light living in your bones. This light is not merely chemical or physical. It is a bridge between what is and what can be. When a bone breaks, the body calls upon this inner glow to heal and restore. Cells gather, guided by subtle pulses, to mend what was once whole. It is a slow process, not hurried by desire but steady with purpose. Each new layer laid down is a testament to resilience, to the persistence of life's light even in moments of fracture and repair. Healing bone is more than tissue regeneration. It is a dance of energy. Electric fields guide the growth of new cells. Light pulses encourage communication between neighbors. Calcium crystallizes with precision, creating strength from weakness. This dance is ancient, perfected through eons, and yet it is personal, unique to each body, each moment. The light within your bones remembers how to heal because it is connected to a greater network of life, a system that stretches from the tiniest cell to the stars overhead. Beyond healing, the light in our bones influences how we move through the world. It is part of the feedback loop that keeps us balanced, coordinated, aware. The subtle signals help our muscles know when to contract, our joints when to bend. They keep us upright, moving gracefully through space and time. This light is not separate from thought or feeling. It dances in rhythm with the brain's own pulses, in harmony with the breath's rise and fall. In every step, every stretch, every rest, light moves quietly within us, keeping the song of life alive. And even as we age, when bones grow brittle or thin, this light does not vanish. It flickers differently, perhaps more softly, but it remains. It reminds us that life is not measured only in strength or speed, but in presence, in the ability to carry memory and hope through change. Our bones, glowing softly with life's light, teach us that aging is a transformation, not a loss, that the story continues, written in every cell, every photon, every beat. When we consider the light that lives in our bones, we begin to see ourselves differently. We are not just bodies moving through days. We are luminous beings, connected to the cosmos in ways both seen and unseen. Our skeletons, the framework of our physical selves, are also the keepers of a gentle, glowing memory, a memory that links us to stars, to Earth, to life itself. In this light, we find both our history and our future. We find the quiet power to heal, to grow, to become more than what we seem. So the next time you feel your bones beneath your skin, remember the light within. Remember the ancient stars that formed them. Feel the glow of life pulsing in the marrow. Know that you carry a universe inside you, not just in the space between atoms, but in every shimmer of biophoton, every silent pulse of energy. This light is yours always. It is the light that lives in your bones, and it shines quietly, brilliantly, forever. Beneath our feet, hidden from sight, lies a world filled with quiet conversation. The roots of trees stretch like long fingers through the earth, weaving intricate networks that connect one plant to another. This underground web is alive, not in the way we usually see life, but in a softer, slower way. It whispers in chemical signals, in shifts of moisture, in the movement of nutrients carried delicately through soil. Roots do not shout or clamor for attention. They communicate with patience and care, building relationships that sustain entire forests. Beneath the rustling leaves and swaying branches, the roots hold the true story of connection. Roots remember the earth. They know the taste of minerals, the texture of clay, the flow of water hidden deep beneath stones. They grow toward what nourishes, avoiding what harms. They adapt their paths, bending around rocks or stretching toward pockets of moisture. This is not randomness. It is choice made in silence. Roots listen to the signals sent by other plants, detecting warnings of drought or disease, and responding with changes in growth or chemistry. Some roots even share food with their neighbors, an underground gift economy that keeps communities alive through lean seasons. This hidden world of roots is vast and complex. In a single forest, roots of different trees intertwine, sometimes competing, sometimes cooperating. Fungi partner with roots, forming mycorrhizal networks that extend the reach of plants and help them absorb nutrients more efficiently. These fungal threads, finer than human hair, weave through the soil like living bridges. They carry signals and resources, linking plants across species and distances. Through these connections, trees can warn each other of insect attacks or share nutrients with seedlings struggling in shade. It is a network of care, resilience, and memory. Roots also shape the land itself. As they grow, they anchor soil, preventing erosion. Their decay adds organic matter, enriching the earth. Over centuries, root systems can transform rocky ground into fertile soil, preparing the way for new life. This slow shaping is a form of patience, a testament to the power of quiet persistence. Roots teach us that strength is not always visible, that the deepest work is often done beneath the surface, away from the eye of the sun. And roots breathe. Though they live underground, they require oxygen to survive. Tiny pores in the soil allow air to reach them, and roots take in gases essential for their growth. They exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide with the earth, part of a delicate balance that sustains life. In wetlands, roots of certain plants adapt to low oxygen environments, forming special structures that help them breathe. This adaptability shows roots are not just passive anchors. They are active participants in their environment, sensing and responding with remarkable sensitivity. For humans, roots hold symbolic meaning as well. They represent stability, ancestry, belonging. To have roots is to have a place to return to, a foundation from which to grow. We talk about putting down roots when we settle, and about uprooting when we move away. These phrases echo the deep connection between people and the natural world. Just as roots nourish trees, our roots nourish our sense of identity and connection. And just as roots grow in complexity beneath the soil, so do our relationships, histories, and stories beneath the surface of our lives. In the whisper of roots, there is a lesson for us all, that growth is never solitary. That strength is found in connection. That what supports us is often hidden but no less real. That life thrives not only in sunlight but in the dark, in the quiet, in the unseen. And if we listen carefully to the world beneath our feet, we might hear the oldest story of all, the story of belonging, resilience, and the gentle power of reaching out. Now, let us drift deeper into the hidden life of roots, exploring their vast, silent networks that bind forests and fields alike. Roots do not work alone. They form communities beneath the surface, weaving connections that span meters, even kilometers of soil. Some trees in ancient forests have roots intertwined so closely that they support each other in storms, sharing water and nutrients through invisible pathways. This underground web is sometimes called the Wood Wide Web, a playful name for a profound natural system. Through fungal partners called mycorrhizae, roots extend their reach far beyond what alone they could achieve, tapping into resources and passing messages with a complexity we are only beginning to understand. This network of roots and fungi is a place of constant exchange and cooperation. When a tree is attacked by insects, it sends chemical signals through its roots and fungal connections to warn neighbors. Those trees respond by producing bitter substances in their leaves, preparing defenses even before the threat arrives. It's a silent conversation, a shared vigilance that protects the whole community. Roots also share sugars and nutrients, giving extra food to younger or weaker plants, helping them survive tough seasons. In this way, the forest beneath our feet is less a battleground and more a cooperative society where survival depends on sharing and listening. Roots shape their environment in other ways too. As they grow, they change the structure of soil, creating pockets and pathways that allow air and water to move more freely. This, in turn, supports microorganisms, bacteria, and insects that play vital roles in decomposing organic matter and cycling nutrients. The presence of healthy roots fosters a living soil, rich, vibrant, full of unseen life. Without these interactions, the earth would become hard and lifeless, unable to support the plants and animals that depend on it. Roots, then, are both architects and caretakers of the ground beneath us. In wetlands and swampy areas, roots face different challenges. Oxygen is scarce, waterlogged soil presses hard, and conditions shift with tides or floods. Yet plants have adapted remarkable strategies. Some roots grow upwards, breaking the surface to breathe. Others develop special tissues that store air and transport it underground. These adaptations show roots' resilience and their willingness to change shape to survive. Even in the harshest environments, roots find a way to reach for life and keep the cycle moving. Roots also influence the atmosphere. By drawing carbon dioxide from the air into the soil, they play a key role in regulating climate. The carbon stored underground helps mitigate the effects of human emissions, slowing the pace of global warming. Protecting forests and their root systems becomes not just a matter of preserving beauty or biodiversity, but of sustaining the planet's balance. Roots teach us that the smallest, deepest parts of nature have power far beyond their size. They connect soil to sky, earth to air, life to the future. For humans, roots hold a mirror to our own lives. They remind us that growth is often hidden, that progress does not always show on the surface, that the connections we make beneath our busy days, our friendships, families, memories, are the foundation of who we are. Just as roots intertwine and support, we too are part of networks of care and trust. And like roots, we must nourish these connections patiently and gently, knowing that they shape our ability to stand tall and weather storms. In the whisper of roots there is an invitation to slow down, to listen, to recognize the strength in quiet bonds, to understand that life's deepest work is often unseen but always vital, and that beneath the noise and rush of the world, a softer conversation continues, a conversation of reaching, sharing, and belonging. If we open ourselves to that whisper, we might find a way to grow not just taller, but stronger, kinder, more connected. Eventually, roots meet the end of their journey, not as a stopping point, but as a transformation. As roots die, they return to the soil, breaking down slowly, becoming part of the earth's rich fabric. Their decay nourishes microorganisms and insects, enriching the ground with organic matter. This process recycles life, turning what once was living root into food for new growth. It is a gentle cycle of death and renewal, showing that even in endings there is beginning. The earth does not waste. It remembers. Every broken root becomes a seedbed, every faded fiber a thread in the tapestry of the forest floor. This continuous cycle beneath the surface supports the towering trees above. Each tree depends on the roots, work far more than we realize. The strength of a tree is only as good as the health of its roots, and the roots depend on soil and microbes and water moving together in harmony. This balance is fragile and dynamic, shaped by seasons, storms, droughts, and the quiet persistence of life. Roots remind us that support often comes from below, from places we cannot see but must trust. They teach patience, resilience, and interconnectedness. Humans have learned from roots not just practical knowledge, but wisdom. We speak of roots when talking about family, culture, identity. We honor roots in rituals and stories, knowing that where we come from shapes where we go. But like roots, we also reach out, branching, exploring, connecting beyond ourselves. The whisper of roots encourages us to nurture both grounding and growth, to listen to the deep places inside us while reaching toward light, to build networks of care that hold us steady through change. Roots also remind us of our responsibility. Just as they care for the soil, so must we care for the earth. Protecting forests, nurturing soils, conserving water, these are ways we honor the unseen work that sustains life. When forests are cut or soils eroded, the whisper of roots grows faint. The soil loses its richness. Water runs away. Life struggles. Listening to roots is also listening to the planet's health, to the pulse of the land beneath our feet. In this understanding there is hope. Roots have endured ice ages, droughts, fires. They have adapted, survived, grown anew. Their quiet strength is a model for resilience. When the world changes rapidly above, roots work steadily below, weaving new paths, supporting new life. They are a reminder that growth is not always loud or fast. Sometimes it is slow and hidden, yet no less powerful. So when you walk in a forest or garden or field, pause and remember the roots beneath you. Think of their endless reaching, their patient listening, their silent care. Know that you are part of this story too, a story of connection, of belonging, of life whispered softly through earth and time. The roots beneath our feet are the roots within our hearts. And when we listen to their whisper, we hear the oldest song of all, the song of life continuing endlessly and gently beneath the surface. Water is more than liquid. It is memory made visible. It remembers the shape of every container it touches. The way it moves, the sounds it makes, the temperature it holds, all carry stories of where it has been. When rain falls on a leaf, it does not just wet the surface, it learns the curve, the veins, the texture. When water flows down a mountain stream, it remembers the rocks it has slipped over, the roots it has caressed. Water holds these memories quietly, without words, without voice, but with a presence that connects past to present. It is a living archive, always in motion, always becoming. At the microscopic level, water molecules form clusters, tiny groups that come together and break apart in rhythms. These clusters are shaped by what water touches: minerals in soil, chemicals in plants, heat from the sun. In this way, water carries an imprint of its environment. Scientists have observed that water can hold patterns, information, that affects how it behaves. It's as if water remembers the energy around it, the stories it has gathered. Though this is still a mystery in many ways, it suggests that water is not just a passive element, but a participant in life's story. Water moves in cycles, never resting. It evaporates into the air, rises as vapor, condenses into clouds, falls again as rain or snow. Each cycle changes water, yet it remains water. Each time it falls, it brings the memory of its journey back to the earth. In rivers, lakes, oceans, water mixes and mingles, carrying memories from places far and wide. When you drink water, you take in part of that story. You drink the history of clouds, mountains, forests, and cities. Water connects us all, not only physically but in memory. In plants, water is the storyteller that travels from roots to leaves. It carries nutrients, signals, even chemical messages that help plants respond to their environment. When a plant is stressed by drought or attacked by insects, the water inside can change in subtle ways, sending warnings through the plant's veins. This flow of information helps plants adapt and survive. Water, then, is more than nourishment. It is communication. It carries the life of the plant as well as its memory. Water in animals also carries memory. From the first cell to the complex body, water is the medium for signals, reactions, and life processes. It holds the shape of cells, the rhythm of heartbeat, the pulse of breath. When we sweat or cry, we release water that has held moments of feeling, of effort, of healing. Water moves with us, inside and outside, linking us to the earth and sky. It is a reminder that life is never separate from its source, never detached from the story it carries. This memory of water is ancient. It stretches back to the origins of life, when water filled the oceans and nurtured the first cells. It has traveled through glaciers and deserts, storms and quiet streams. It has witnessed the rise and fall of continents, the shifting of climates, the unfolding of ecosystems. And it continues today in every drop, in every stream, in every breath. Water remembers, and through remembering, it connects all life in an unbroken chain. Water's memory is a call to awareness, to see water not just as resource or element but as a living archive, to honor the journey each drop has taken, to understand that when we use water we engage with its story, when we pollute it we interfere with its history, when we protect it we become part of its future. Water invites us to listen, to its whisper, its flow, its memory, and to join in the endless dance of life that it carries forward. Let us drift deeper into the journey of water's memory, exploring how it carries the imprint of the world through its endless cycle. When water evaporates from oceans or lakes, it does not leave empty space behind. It carries away heat, minerals, and stories from the surface it leaves. As vapor rises, it gathers with other droplets, each bringing its own history, joining in the sky to form clouds that drift far from their birthplace. These clouds are not just collections of moisture, they are floating archives of the Earth's memory, moving silently across continents and oceans, carrying traces of salt, pollen, and even human fingerprints. Within clouds, water's memory is reshaped. Vapor condenses into droplets, freezing into ice crystals, sometimes combining into snowflakes. Each shape formed is unique, influenced by temperature, humidity, and the invisible currents of air. The snowflake that lands on a mountain peak today may carry the memory of a desert storm that happened weeks ago, or the scent of a tropical forest far away. Water's journey is not linear but woven, threads of past and present entwined in every drop. When these droplets fall as rain or snow, they bring with them the stories of where they've been, telling tales without words. As water flows over land in streams and rivers, it continues to gather memory. It touches soil and rock, picks up minerals and nutrients, absorbs the warmth of sunlight and the coolness of shade. It carries life within it, microbes, seeds, and tiny creatures hitching rides on the current. The river is a moving library with pages written in movement, sound, and color. When a river floods, it spreads these memories over the floodplain, nourishing fields and forests, refreshing the earth. Floodwaters may also carry sediment from distant mountains, telling the story of erosion and renewal. Water in lakes and oceans holds vast, deep memories. The ocean remembers the heat of the sun, the pull of the moon, the migrations of creatures that live within it. Currents carry warm water from equator to poles and cold water back again, regulating climate and connecting distant ecosystems. The salt in the ocean is ancient, the product of millennia of rivers washing minerals into the sea. When water evaporates from the ocean, it leaves salt behind but takes with it the story of its journey, the warmth of waves, the whispers of storms, the breath of creatures beneath the surface. Within living beings, water's memory is intimate and vital. Cells are made mostly of water, and within those cells, water facilitates every reaction, every movement. It carries electrical signals in nerves, transports nutrients in blood, flushes waste in urine and sweat. When we move, think, feel, water is there, flowing and pulsing, a medium of life's memory. Even when we drink water, we take in the traces of the Earth's history, the sky's journey, the cycle of evaporation and rain. We carry the memory of water in every part of us. Water's memory also teaches us about connection and continuity. It shows us that nothing is isolated. A drop of rain today may have been part of a glacier centuries ago, or part of a cloud over another continent. When we pollute water, we alter not just local ecosystems but the stories carried across the globe. When we protect water sources, we honor these stories, preserving the delicate balance of life's memory. Water reminds us that we are part of a larger story, one that stretches beyond ourselves, beyond time. So as water moves, it invites us to listen, to its whispers in the stream, its rhythms in the rain, its silence beneath the ice. In its flow is the history of earth, air, life, and change. In its memory is the promise of renewal, the story of belonging. To honor water's memory is to honor the fragile, beautiful web of life we all share. Now, as water returns to the earth, its memory is shared once again, folded into soil, taken up by roots, inhaled by breath, swallowed by creatures great and small. It does not simply disappear after falling as rain or snow. It becomes part of life, part of growth, part of the ongoing story of the planet. Water soaks into the ground, feeding underground rivers and aquifers that have flowed for thousands of years. It pools in lakes, reflecting the sky and storing light. It runs in streams, carving the land gently yet persistently. Each place it touches adds new chapters to its memory, layers of history and life. As water moves within plants, it carries nutrients from soil to leaf, helping sustain growth and bloom. This movement is part of photosynthesis, where sunlight's energy is transformed into food and oxygen. Water here is both messenger and medium. It carries chemical signals that tell plants when to grow, when to rest, when to defend. Through stomata, tiny pores on leaves, water evaporates again, joining the atmosphere, continuing the endless cycle. In this way, water's memory is cyclical, renewed with each breath of the planet. Animals depend on water's memory too. From the ocean's depths to desert springs, water connects habitats and species. Migratory birds follow rains, knowing when to move by patterns written in moisture and temperature. Fish navigate rivers and streams by scent and flow, finding their way home to spawn. Mammals drink from pools shaped by seasonal rains, sustaining themselves and their young. Water's presence or absence writes the story of survival, migration, and adaptation. It teaches resilience, patience, and connection. Humans who rely on water for drinking, agriculture, and industry also carry responsibility for its memory. Our actions affect not just local waters but the global cycle. Pollution, overuse, climate change, all disrupt the delicate balance water maintains. Yet there is hope in stewardship and respect. Efforts to clean rivers, conserve wetlands, and reduce waste honor water's role as a keeper of memory and life. To protect water is to protect the story it carries, a story shared by all living beings. Water's memory is a gift and a teacher. It reminds us of time's flow, of interconnectedness, of the delicate balance sustaining life. It invites us to move with care, to listen with awareness, to honor the silent stories flowing through every drop. When we drink, bathe, or watch rain fall, we engage with that memory. We become part of water's ongoing journey, a journey that began before us and will continue long after. So the next time you feel the coolness of water or hear the sound of a stream, remember its deeper meaning. It is not just liquid but living memory. It is the pulse of earth and sky, of past and future. In every drop is the story of life itself, soft, enduring, and endlessly flowing.